Hello everybody and welcome to this week's live show with GM, which is me. See, we've got some horrid little artifacts happening in here. Let's just try and squeeze that out. I hope everyone is doing okay today. Certainly been a very interesting week for me thus far, and it's Monday for some of you. It's already Tuesday, almost midday for me. But yes, if everything is, if any issues, let me know, please. We will try and correct, fix, or otherwise make them better. Okay, it is a full show today. We're only doing an hour, I'm afraid. Today is absolutely packed, chock-a-block with all kinds of things happening. We're going to go through some of those, but it is, as always, all about your questions. So if you have a question, remember to write the word question in the front of it. You'll see that Boosh has already done so by writing the word question, as you can see there, question in front. How was my day? So far my day has been absolutely amazing. I normally wake up at 5 a.m. to try and keep the body clock in sync with all the different time zones I have to juggle. But today I allowed myself to sleep in, and I only got out of bed at 6 a.m. this morning. So there we are. We've got lots going on today. We will be doing some creative writing, Grizzles, so don't worry. I know a lot of you like creative writing. And so yes, it's something to look at. Honourable 596. Do I keep up with Unearthed Arcana? I don't. I really don't. You know, there's so many things going on, so many crazy and wonderful things out there. I prefer my players, if they have something cool, if they have something that they want to do, I let them bring it in. But generally speaking, I don't keep up with all that kind of stuff. All right, we're going to go through some various bits and pieces. Today we see the launch of a new campaign which has been sponsored by an amazing company. So I don't yet have their logo ready to show you, but I do have up for grabs for today this amazing set of dice. Now this is Easy Roller Dice. Easy Roller Dice, they sent me a package of stuff and they said, well, you know, do what you need to do. So I'm going to give them away because they gave them to me free, obviously, just that I talk about them on the show. That's one of the benefits of running a show, I suppose. But dice are amazing things. I absolutely love them. I will be making another show to talk more about dice. I think dice are really cool. You know, when you look at all the different types of dice and things that are out there, I think that you can never have too many. I mean, I've got some dice. When I was in the US, I picked up some dice that were carved out of stone. I picked up some dice that were carved out of resin, or made out of resin, I should say. When I was in Finland, I got dice made out of reindeer horn bone, I suppose you could call it. So these dice that we're going to be giving away today, they're called Gold Sparkle. They are just very pretty gold sparkly dice. I mean, who doesn't like gold sparkly dice? But what I also like about it is that they are very legible. I like that. I really do. So stick around. We're going to talk about how you can get your hands on this set of Gold Sparkle dice today, and we'll take it from there. So that's Easy Roller Dice. Easy Roller Dice. Really nice. And you know, what I particularly like is that we get sponsors sending us stuff all the time, and we get people saying, oh, please talk about my product, please talk about my product. And it is definitely a perk. I mean, it really is a perk. But I have to say, most of the time, we just kind of get an email saying, right, you know, we want this, we want that, and here's product. This one, I got this little postcard which says, Guy, thank you, looking forward to good things together, Michael. It's a simple little card. It took him like 2 seconds, but I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you together as well. And so, you know, there's some amazing stuff that's going to be coming out over the next couple of couple weeks as we give away what they've put into this box. This is just the beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg. So bear that in mind. And Xander the Green, I've got so many dice, but never too many dice. Never too many dice. Okay, right. Now, how well do the stone dice roll, asks Z10. To be honest, they're made out of soapstone. Now, if you're unfamiliar with soapstone is a very, very soft stone, often used in carvings. Now, in Africa, where I come from, soapstone is fairly common. Fairly common, and so there's lots of carving that comes out of it. I actually don't have the dice anymore. I put them in a box. I've started packing for the UK, for my move to the UK, so they're in a box somewhere. Otherwise I would show them to you, but they're quite nice. So I haven't rolled them because their edges are going to just wear off straight away. It was more the idea of, oh look, I've got these dice. So. Okay, let's get into some questions. We've got a whole bunch of things to talk about. I'm going to watch the time very closely today because, like I said, we've only got an hour. I've got a whole bunch of videos to record. Just so that you guys know, you have forewarning for the first 3 weeks of November. There won't be any live shows. The reason for that is that I'm going back to Africa. I'm traveling back to South Africa for the Web Goblin's wedding. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm going to go and see my mother and my sister. I haven't seen them for 2 years since moving to Japan. So I will be having a 2-week holiday in Africa. And during that time period, I won't have access to internet. Or if I do, it'll be intermittent and not guaranteed. So basically, for the first 3 weeks of November, I won't be here. And I say that there might be one on the 5th of November, which I think is a Tuesday, because I fly out at midnight from Tokyo on that day. So there might be one on the 5th. But anyway, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so that's something to think about. I'm moving to the UK at the end of January. That's it's very sad for me to leave Japan. Really sad for me to leave Japan, but exciting for me to move to the UK. So there you go. I mean, it's all these kind of crazy things. Now, that's neither here nor there. That's not what you guys are here for. You want to talk about role playing. So let's jump into some questions already. DJ Down Under 757 asked in Discord. So I'm going to go to Discord very quickly. We have a channel. That's discord.gg/greatgm. So we have a channel where you can join us and ask. I'm busy looking for it right now. There is a specific channel just for questions that can be asked. And of course, now I've lost it. Is it Ask a Question? It's one of them here. Anyway, I know DJ Down Under asked a question which now I cannot find because I'm looking. Oh, live sessions QA. Okay, right, there we go. Right, so DJ Down Under asked this question. Unusual NPC. I have an unusual NPC, a fairy dragon, in fact. And basically said, I know you've done a whole bunch of videos on NPCs, but I was hoping not to have to skim through all of them to find the little bits of info that will help. So... yes, I have done a lot of videos on NPCs, and you don't have to skim through them all, but you haven't yet asked the question. What about your fairy dragon do you want to know? What do you want to know? So answer me that, and I will try and answer you it. I'm not sure how that English works. Xander the Green says, where are all the places you've lived which so far was your favorite? So I have lived on the east coast of Southern Africa, where I was a lecturer for 10 years, and that was very hot and very humid. It's a coastal city, amazing surfing if you're a surfer, which is a lot of fun. If you like surfing. I lived there. I enjoyed it a lot because I got to spend a lot of time with friends, close friends and the like, and did a lot of role playing. Then I moved to Johannesburg, which is oftentimes thought of as the capital of South Africa. It isn't. Johannesburg was amazing, absolutely amazing. It was the biggest city I had lived in at that stage, 9 million people, and I developed a whole bunch of friends in terms of role playing, of course, and that's where I started competitively role playing. So I suppose you could say that was very, very influential. Other than that, Tokyo. Tokyo is absolutely mind-blowing. There is nothing one can say about Tokyo in a bad way, unless you're talking about socializing. But Tokyo is absolutely, absolutely amazing. So that will be interesting. I was only in Minneapolis for 2 months, which I don't think really counts as having lived there. It was great. You did need to have lots of cars. So Tokyo is very useful for for getting around if you don't want lots of cars. Right, so far, I would have to say Tokyo wins in terms of just everything being at your fingertips. Yesterday, for my birthday, we went to Disney Sea. So they've got Disneyland and Disney Sea. They have 2 Disney theme parks right next to each other. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. So absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, Draconi says, I started writing up an RPG where you play as a dungeon core. That's just jumped off of my screen. Let me go back there. Remember, if you did ask a question and I didn't see it, please ask it again. Spam it until I do it. So Draconi says, I started writing up an RPG where you play as a dungeon core this morning. What are some monster types? What are some monster types do you suggest for players to make use of? I'm making dragons a high-cost monster. Where you play as a dungeon core. So something like Dungeon Keeper 2 or Dungeon Keeper 1 are you suggesting, where you're the actual dungeon and you sort of have to construct and add in monsters and creatures and things. A lot of fun, those kinds of games. Adversarial in a way, which is obviously fun, depending on the type of people you're playing with. So what are the type of monsters do you suggest for players to make use of it? I would theme those dungeons. You know, far too often we get dungeons where we theme them based on the difficulty of the creature rather than necessarily on the dungeon. I mean, I remember doing dungeon crawls when I was first starting out, where the DM basically went, okay, well, you need to fight a low experience point monster because they're too powerful otherwise. So you'd get a dungeon that had goblins, and then you'd go down a level and suddenly it was orcs, and you go down a level and suddenly it was ogres, and then so on and so on. And you go, well, after a while, it's like, well, what's the purpose of this dungeon? If it's just a dungeon crawl, then it's basically just dice rolling. It's opposition. Unless that, of course, is the game, and it's not anything to do with role-playing, in which case that's absolutely fine. So I would always try and theme it. So I would say, okay, well, if this is a dungeon and you want your dragon to be the center of the dungeon, I would say, well, what color is the dragon if you're going to use something like Dungeons and Dragons, or what is the dragon's motivation? Is it a necromantic dragon? Is it a summoning dragon? Is it a trickster dragon? So I would base it around that, and then I would have the monsters emulate that theme moving throughout. Jacob Lemire asks, how do you balance the stories of the PCs and not make one of them a main character? Jacob, it is a very good question, and I think the most challenging position that a dungeon master or game master can be put in is when you have stronger players than others. And by stronger players, I mean players that are perhaps more vocal or a little bit sharper in terms of situational planning. They might be glib, so they can come up with solutions very, very quickly. And oftentimes that shadows other players. So yes, it is a challenge. And the way that I do it, generally speaking, is if you're running a long-term campaign, I try to make sure that, okay, this adventure, this person has shined. They're our lead character, if you like. Next adventure, I'm going to make sure that I look at the character sheets of the participating players. I make sure that the adventure is going to work for that character specifically. If I find that there's a huge imbalance. Also bear in mind, some players don't like to be the center of attention, so they would rather be pushed back a little bit, and they'd rather be the support character, where they feature here and there, but they aren't the central focus. So bear that in mind as well. But generally speaking, as you control your table with initiative, I would also control your players' game time by quite literally watching to see who has done what, and keeping it balanced that way. Okay, next question. Oh wait, sorry, I've stalled the chat. So, I've got to scroll down. There's so many questions. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Starting at the top. Again, Honourable 5. It's gone. I'm going to scroll up. Honourable 596 says, as an experienced GM, how balanced would you say having a weapon ignore a few points, not the entirety, but just a few points of armor class? Wait. Having a weapon ignore a few points, not the entirety, but just a few points of armor class be in 5th edition. I'm not sure what you're saying there. In terms of ignoring armor class would be just giving the weapon a plus to hit, I suppose, or something along those lines. This is my usual concoction, Coca-Cola, half Coca-Cola and half water. I know people find it abhorrent, but it takes the fizz away. Next question. The anonymous guy says, have you played Shaintar Immortal Legends? I have not played Shaintar Immortal Legends. I will make a note to go and have a look at that. There was a big question there. Where are we? Pawn Shops Katiko says, how do I DM the astral planes? This is entirely up to you. The astral planes, of course, well, the astral plane anyway, is a very interesting space. And I think it's entirely up to you as to how you would want to drive the story. So astral planes, you don't have a physical body, you're incorporeal. If you get detached from your main body, you get lost there for all eternity. Play around with the expectations of what the players have when you talk about astral planes. Bearing in mind, just because the books have a description doesn't mean you have to stick to it. You can always push it and drive it in different directions and really twist it up, I would say. The biggest thing for me would be to try and explore what type of creatures or individuals would live within the astral plane. So I had the similar problem when I was asked to run Descent into Avernus, where you have Avernus and you go, okay, well, what type of creatures live there, what type of monsters live there, and not just the superficial ones, not the ones that we realize or that we know about from sort of common knowledge. Let's try and look for something interesting, and you can draw inspiration from anywhere. So the one monster that I came up with for Avernus, which the characters have encountered and has now caused them quite a large amount of terror, is Dungeon Fog was doing the maps, or is doing the maps for Descent into Avernus, and they created this rocky piece of prop for use in the maps, and they put chains on it. And I went, I like those chains. Rocks and Avernus and chains, traditionally, traditionally people get chained to the rocks, and the rocks kind of hold them in place. So the rocks are going to become a monster with the chains that actually act as tendrils. So in the astral plane, would you have giant astral anemones with long tentacles trying to trap spiritual bodies moving through? I think you could. I think that could be quite exciting. Matt Newman says, do you think it's ever okay to dramatically kill a PC for plot reasons? And if so, there is the doorbell. I'm going to have to leave you for just a moment. I will be back. Give me a sec. Okay, sorry, I'm back. The doorbell rings, and here in Japan, almost all post is hand-delivered to your door, which is amazing and lovely. But if you don't, then they put a slip in your door saying they tried to deliver and you weren't there, and then you have to phone them and explain to them. You don't have to explain to them why, but anyway, right? I don't like postmen having to leave things and then come back again. It feels awfully horrid, and I'm the only. As far as I know, I'm the only English speaker in this entire apartment block. So there we are. Okay. Next question. Where were we? What were we talking about? We were talking about astral planes and monsters and things, and then it got lost. So I'm moving on. I'm sorry. I'm moving on. Okay, 5 more minutes of questions. Terranatum says, I'm new to online gaming, as you know, and I'm wondering what reactions I should tweak. I know I need to stay quieter in response. Where are we going? Scroll up. I need to stay quiet in response to other people's actions, like their die roll results or general laughter drowning out the play. Other things. Terranatum, when we play online, the biggest thing we have to realize is that we don't have the option of filtering the audio, as our ears do. So when you're around a table, other people talking, you can kind of zone them out. It's a wonderful function of humans that we have. And so I would always say, well, if there is something to be joyous about it. But be joyous about it quite quickly. I think we need to celebrate successes, and when we're sitting around a table and someone rolls something, I think it's something to do. Now, this may or may not be appropriate to your group, so it's also about determining what your online group is doing and what they find acceptable behavior as well. That might be quite different. They might not have an issue with it. If you watch some of my earlier videos about online role-playing, I used to rage against the idea of people drinking during a stream. let alone having wildlife wander around, such as cats and the like. So I think, again, it depends entirely on the group that you're playing with, and being cognizant of what they find acceptable and what they don't find acceptable. I think also something to do, which not a lot of people do, is to watch the stream or listen to your online play after the fact and see what it's like, so that you can listen and see, oh, do you have safe words? Do you have an annoying ticking sound in the background? Is there a this? Is there a that? Should you be hitting that mute button more often? Or how does that work? So that's something to bear in mind. That's definitely something to bear in mind. Next question, DJ Down Under says, what's the best way to run a fairy dragon as a companion? I don't want to be a combatant, and the players are in a dragonborn city, away from his Sylvan Forest home. Fairy dragons and the like are curious, quizzical things, and I think to give it a personality where it doesn't get involved in combat, regardless of what's happening, I think could make it very dramatic. So it can run away, it can scurry away, and if the party are in serious trouble, it could go and try and get someone to help them, for example. I think it would also be very shy in a dragonborn city, because here are all of these weird and wonderful half-breed type of things wandering around. Or are they half-breeds? Are they a pure breed expression? Who knows? There are all these kinds of amazing things. So now, yes, these are important questions to ask. I think one thing that you need to do as well is make sure that it doesn't become a source of something. So far too often we have familiars, or we have warlocks, for example, with fey pacts and the like, trying to rely on these things to give them insight into the game that perhaps they ordinarily wouldn't have access to. And I think it's about balancing how much information you let them gain or get versus the other players. So if the character has now got this fairy dragon, is it going to provide them with more of an advantage? Because if you think about familiars, if you think about those kinds of things, they are effectively the equivalent of a warrior's weapon, or a monk's fist attacks, or etc., etc. Is this magical item, that's another way of thinking about it, is it going to overpower? So if you had a magical staff, and the staff was capable of doing what the fairy dragon is doing, is that an overpowered object? And I think that's something that we need to also bear in mind, is that NPCs, whether they're fairy dragons or just a good old-fashioned farmer or a wagon driver, they are effectively a bonus to the PCs. And you've got to make sure that you don't overpower them by allowing them to do too much. At the same time, because they're a living, breathing entity, there is a certain expectation that they have a certain autonomous action. They can act on their own. So I think that's important. So bear that in mind as well. Okay, 1 minute. So last question. Kirk Wagner says, what differences might one encounter when taking a homebrew setting used for private games? There it goes. Used for private games and write it into a form for global use. What differences might one encounter when taking a homebrew setting used for private games and write it into a form for global use, be it commercial sale or free PDF distribution? All right, so Kirk, I think the thing to bear in mind, or the thing to look at here, if I'm reading your question correctly, is the notion that a homebrew setting, sometimes what you do in homebrew doesn't violate copyright. That's important. Secondly, what you do in homebrew is sometimes based very much on the group. So it becomes an internal group thing, and you go, this doesn't really translate anywhere else. Or it's incredibly culturally specific. So I think that when you are translating these things, the most important thing to bear in mind is to get people from different cultures to read it. So I know, for example, my homeworld, my homebrew of Braxia, a lot of people who are not familiar with Scottish pronunciation of words, Germanic pronunciation of words, my names on my map seem very, very odd. And they look at it and they go, but that's a very strange sound. It doesn't sound like any language, it just sounds weird. And I will say, well, yes, if you pronounce it as it is written phonetically, but if you pronounce it with the particular cadence and guttural sounds of this culture or of that culture, suddenly it makes more sense, and it becomes more culturally relevant and specific. So oftentimes it's about testing that with other people. Now this was something that I encountered very much with, not so much with the first book that I wrote, with Epic Campaigns, but with Nautical Campaigns, a lot of the names that I put in for various ships and things which I thought sounded very specific. My wonderful editor, Mike Harris, who's from the US, he's like, well, I don't know how to pronounce that. So it's a barrier. So we then actually worked on things where I was satisfied that it still felt and fitted the cultural aspects that I wanted to get across, but at the same time, Mike was happy with it, going, well, I only speak English. I don't speak any other languages, so this gives me more of a feel for the culture. So I think that's very, very important. Okay, hold your questions for now, please, everybody. Hold your questions. There's so many questions coming through. It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. But please hold your questions. We're going to talk about some other bits and bobs. I wanted to show you fellows something that I think is absolutely amazing. And I don't know how people who do these don't just run around screaming wildly. We're going to go to the Kickstarter, which I am currently running, How to Be a Great GM, a complete guide to nautical campaigns. This is a 5th edition Kickstarter. If you are a backer of that Kickstarter, you can write questions and comments and get all kinds of updates from me that come through almost daily. We've been doing it since the Kickstarter launched. You can see there it's in yen. Our goal is 1.8 million yen. It sounds like an amazing amount of money. It is an amazing amount of money. It's almost $18,000, but that's US dollars. We're at 1.7, so we're basically there. We've got $1,000 to go, just under $1,000 to go before we reach our first, before we reach the actual target. And I saw there were some questions in the posts about, oh, how many artists have you got working on the book and that sort of thing. Because the reason why we're trying to raise money is the book is finished. The PDF is done in terms of the writing. But in terms of the artwork, it's not yet done. So we wanted to raise money to pay for artwork. And artwork, there are 29 unique ships, by the way. And I think that number is actually going to increase. This is just between you and me. I think that number is going to increase with the success of the book and the Kickstarter anyway. But 29 ships requires 29 illustrations. And the illustrations have started to come through, and they look absolutely beautiful. But considering that each illustration retails for around about $50 to $60 or $70 per illustration, the cost of the book starts to become very, very high. And then, of course, we said, well, we want to have, this is a sample layout. It's not a final layout. It's a sample layout. We want to have illustrations, we want to have maps, we want to have so much more. So we said, okay, well, what's that going to cost us and how do we get there? So that's why we put together this Kickstarter. It's going very, very well, as you can see. These are our stretch goals where we add in these, I think they're very colorful cards that you can keep track of powers and things. And of course, World Anvil and Dungeon Fog are our big partners for that. So if you are part of the Kickstarter and you have questions, please feel free to ask them here in the show, or on the comments, or you can join our Discord, discord.gg, where we have a channel for Kickstarter questions, and I try and answer those as best I can as well. We've got some exciting stuff coming up. I had not anticipated this kind of response, so I've put together my favorite players, I think I can say quite successfully. My favorite players, we're going to be doing a live, well, not live, we're going to record it and then we'll release it on the channel. We're going to do a live playthrough where we're going to be playing with some of the rules that are positioned within the book so that everyone can have a look and see kind of what's going on. We're recording that on Thursday, so hopefully it'll come out next week. Yes, there we go. So that's a complete guide to nautical campaigns. I wanted to share that with you because it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by the support that we've got so far, and who knows where we end up. That's the exciting thing. So that's the Kickstarter. I see. Are there some questions coming through? Let me go back to Restream here. Thank you for sharing that link, Terranatum. This is, I'm not sure what Discord that's for. I'm going to drop it in here, discord.gg/greatgm. Okay, there we go. So that's if you want to join the Discord, please come and say hi. Did it go through? I thought I typed it in. Did I not type it in the right place? Let's try that again. Discord.gg/greatgm. Ta-da! Okay, now it's going through. I don't know why. I don't know why. All right. Yes, I'm so glad Inquisitor Nocturne asked on that one. So, yeah. Inktober. What is Inktober? We will come back to your questions, so don't worry. We will come back to your questions, but we're just going to work through some housekeeping, if you like. Inktober is being run by my very good friends at World Anvil. So World Anvil, if you go to their website, it's worldanvil.com, you'll see that they're running Inktober. Now, Inktober traditionally has been the playground of artists, where every month or every day during the period of October, of Inktober, a prompt is given out, and then artists sort of draw their response to the prompt. What World Anvil has done is they've said, well, we're writers, we're creators, we're storytellers. Let's do the same thing, but from a literary perspective. So if you head on over to World Anvil, you can find their Inktober prompt, which for the next 31 days, well, that's a lie, actually, for the next 22 days, or 23 days, there are prompts of stuff that you should be writing down. I think it's going to be very fun. I would love to do it myself, but, well, you know, life is life. So they give you this little prompt, they give you an item to talk about, whether it's a ring in this particular case. They've done mindlessness, bait, freeze. So lots of interesting ideas, and they're releasing these out every day, I should say. So if you are interested in getting involved, they tell you how to do that on their website, and you can jump in and do that. So lots of interesting options for you to explore, lots of creative writing for you to explore, and that is part of this whole process, is the creative writing process. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in November as well, so brace yourselves for that. But Inktober, yes, Inktober by World Anvil, go and check it out, and it should be a lot of fun for those of you that can participate in that. Now, before I go anywhere else, I've got just one more thing to talk about, and that's primarily if you're a patron of the channel. If you are a patron of the channel, you know that every month we release an adventure module for you guys to take and add into your existing campaigns. Now, every month, at the beginning of the month, we do a vote where we say, right, what do you want this particular adventure to be? Now, because the channel tries to be system agnostic, even though we do end up generally shifting over into Dungeons and Dragons just because of it's so popular, but we try to remain system agnostic. So last month was the release of a post-apocalyptic setting. This month, we're busy voting on it. So if you are a patron and you haven't yet voted, please go and vote. I need to show you this because you need to see the amazing thing that is my life when it's like, okay, time to write the vote. So there we've got 20 votes. This is out of, I think, 80 or 90 odd patrons who could qualify to vote. It's actually any patron can vote. So modern day Fae storyline. So that's at 10 votes at the moment. Weird Wild West scenario, and then Call of Cthulhu investigation. So have a look. If you are a patron, please go and vote, because I need to start writing that shortly so I can get that out to you before the end of the month. That, of course, comes with a map or maps, depending on how many we need. And yes, so those should be fun. I really like the idea of writing a modern day Fae thing. There are a couple things that could inspire one. Carnival Row, for example, on Amazon Prime just came out, and they released their own RPG to go with it, which uses the Cypher system as a base. So it's an RPG setting. I downloaded that setting, had a look at it, and I went, I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. But I don't know the Cypher system, so now I've got to learn the Cypher system, which I think is awesome. So there we are. Right, what else did I have to talk about today? No, that was pretty much it. We're still going to do the giveaway for the Easy Roller dice. We are going to do that giveaway. That's for these beautiful little gold flecked dice. Yeah, I think they're very pretty. I think they're very pretty and legible, which is the bottom line. And it comes with a dice bag as well, which I haven't opened up one of these yet, but it does come with a 3.7 inch by 4 inch dice bag, which easily holds 25 dice that I'm reading off of the front of the package there. So yes, we're going to do this giveaway shortly, so watch out for that. Let's do questions for the next 4 minutes, and then we're going to go into creative writing. So, the next question I see on my screen is Honourable596. What do you think of a setting where magic waxes and wanes like the moon, growing stronger and then weaker and then stronger like the moon gets fuller and then emptier and then fuller? It's a good question. I do think the biggest challenge that you're going to have there is players going, do I really want to be stronger and then weaker? That's quite a drift. And how are you going to track it? How are you going to make sure that it is something that's easily followable? Bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. There are a lot of systems that use calendars, perhaps. Are they daily? This is something you need to look at very, very seriously. And is the offset going to be of value to the players? That's the next big question. You might end up chasing away anyone who wants to play a magic user because, it's too complicated, or so we're adventuring on the 2 weeks when I don't have magic, and the 2 weeks when I do have magic is in our downtime. Could be a challenge. Kate Anjan says, I'm currently working with a player to develop someone from their past that will become a future antagonist. How many secrets should I keep so they still experience it like the other PCs? You're working with a player to develop someone from their past. Okay. Well, I would look at it in terms of saying, okay, well, if we are going to be, let's say, drawing someone from the person's past, and that person is a family friend, I would only let them know what they would have learned as the family friend. I wouldn't push them any. I wouldn't give them more than ever than that. I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't give them more info. I wouldn't give them any secrets at all unless they know one or two things. I would perhaps give them 4 or 5 pieces of information to help them determine the character's nature. So you might give them, there was an incident when you were both 10 where so-and-so put a turtle in a bag and then smacked the bag against a stone because they wanted to hear the sound that it was made, and then they wept for days because the turtle died. Showing a little bit of a sociopathic attitude towards animals, not a little bit, a massive one, complete degenerate behavior in my opinion, but it might be enough for the player to go, okay, so this person's a little bit unhinged. The next thing that I would give them is, on your 13th birthday, this person spent all of their copper pieces buying you a new saddle for your horse. So I would mix and match, because no one is ever, I don't think anyway, completely skewed in one direction or another. So you don't want to give them too much, but don't give them not enough that it does come as a surprise. So you can drop in some odd bits and pieces there. That's what I would suggest. Just to keep things unbalanced. All right. So there was a question about the dice giveaway. Dice giveaway is available to anybody on this live stream. So there's 132 people currently, as far as I can tell, in this live stream. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, whom is going to get this giveaway? Well, that's going to be something for creative writing, which we're going to go into right now, as a matter of fact, because we're running out of time. So creative writing is a process whereby I give you a situation or a space or something along those lines, and you get to answer it in the channel. So you're limited to a small amount of text, but it allows you to try and condense what you're trying to say. Now, because we're talking nautical books as a moment, I think I'm allowed to do that. Because we're talking nautical books, one of the things that frequently frustrates players when they're trying to play in a nautical campaign, or when they're trying to play in a ship, or whether it's space or otherwise for that matter, is the difficulty of having something interesting to do on the ship. Now, recently I was commissioned by good friends of mine, Nerdarchy, for their book Out of the Box Encounters to write an encounter. And I based it on a ship because, well, you know, who knows. And I wrote about certain shipboard activities. And the editor wrote back to me and they said, okay, listen, they really like what I've written about, but they wanted more. They felt that the shipboard activities were almost more interesting than the little plot that I had presented. They were happy with it, but they were like, but I really want to know more about this. So your challenge for today, your creative writing challenge, is very, very simple. And I hope that you draw on your own creativity rather than perhaps on something that you have done before. I want you to create a game, very quickly, you've got 10 minutes, to create a game that you might play whilst on board a ship. This could be a fantasy ship, it could be a sailing ship, it could be a spaceship, it could be an airship, it doesn't matter. What game would the crew play on board the ship during downtime? It needs to involve a die or dice. So, whoever comes up with a game which gets people to talk about it in the chat, I think is fair, gets the dice so that they might play their game. There you go. There's your creative writing challenge. Create an on-the-spot fly game using dice that people on a ship might play to pass the time. Now, it would be best if you made this up. Don't rely on something else. Don't say, oh, it's like Yahtzee, or it's like this, or it's like that, or something along those lines. Try and come up with the name, give me the name of the game, and then very briefly, how does it work? So I'll tell you the game that I came up with. It was called Grog or Rum. And Grog or Rum basically was, it's nothing new whatsoever. The players roll 2 die. And yes, the Grim Panda, you write it in the text here. You write it in the text. So, Grog or Rum, the players roll 2 die in front of them. I think it was D8s or D12s. And they look at the number, and then they listen to everybody else. And if you think you are going to win, you say Grog. If you think you're going to lose, you say Rum. The point of the game is to either succeed, the only point is to succeed at your call. So either you will have the highest number or you will have the lowest number. You have to call it Grog or Rum. And of course everyone gets to jump in and you put coins in. So that was the game that I came up with. And when you play it, it's actually quite fun. Because you roll your dice, and you look at it and you go, well, I got 11 if it's out of 12. I'm going to call Grog. But then you listen to everybody else saying Grog or Rum, and someone else says Grog, you're like, oh, they got a high number. I believe I added in that you can re-roll one of your die after the first round of betting has gone in. So there we are. Right, so let's see. Jack Linder says, game we play on the ship is 6s or 1s. We used to play craps until Larry rolled one of the dice overboard. There we are. Jack Linder, I will tell you a story. I had 6 very large plastic die that were made for elderly people who have arthritis and that sort of thing. And this was when we were in high school, we went to a science exposition thing. Our science project had worked quite well. And we were playing it after hours. We were in a high school dormitory. And the one die rolled between the bed and the wall. Now, the beds had been bolted into place for whatever reason. And it landed down there, and we spent 3 days trying to figure out how to get this die from the bottom of this trench out. And we couldn't. So there's still a die. I doubt that this hostel is even still standing, or at least certainly I hope the beds have been replaced since then. But yes, it has been left there since the beginning. Excuse me. Right, so let's see. Jack Linder, Jaegerblood says the Lightning Clan is a mid-level clan. No, don't see that as a die. Dead Aussie Gamer, 3 Drake dice. Roll dice and try to get 3 6s and avoid 3 1s. If you roll straight 1s, you have to grab the knife in the center of the table and try to stab your opponent before they stab you. Okay. That's interesting. I like it, Dead LZ Gamer. Eric says Blood Dragon's Pact. Okay, we'll wait for the rest of that to come in, Eric. Or ERJK. Dustin says, rolling overboard. Start on one side of the ship. Announce how many rolls you will make. Must be higher than the last person. You roll. Wait, oh, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Wait, where were we going? You roll and have to take that many steps forward. Don't walk off. Interesting until you come to the airlock and it's like, do I really have to play through my turn? I like it. Rolling overboard. Short plank says Sumeragican, and that's 3 cups each, has 3 12-sided die under it. Okay, so alright, sure, alright. You toss the dice in the cups and flip the cups over. The point is to have the lowest number. You bet on who has while bluffing. Okay, I like that one. That one guy says Siren's Seduction. 2 to 4 players. Roll 3d6, 2d4, and then add them up. Highest number wins, but there's a catch. Player can say Siren and add or remove at least 2 die from another pool to lower numbers. Interesting. Okay, so let me do this. 3d6, so that's 18, and 2d4 is 8. So you have a potential of 20, what did I say? 8, right? And 18. So you have a potential of 26. And then you can remove 2 dice. Siren Seduction. I like that. I do like that. I really like that. Paladin Exarch says, high dice, bet, roll a d8, bet, raise, fold, roll a d6, bet, raise, fold, roll a d4. Bet, raise, or fold, higher number wins. Paladin Exarch, that's a lovely, simple game. I do like that one. The anonymous guy says, Ragshaw, you roll the 7 dice you roll the 7 dice once. After the in rounds, the 4s, the 6s, and so on, and whoever gets the highest count wins. In the event of a tie, you split the pot. If you get all top numbers, Ragshaw. Okay. Interesting one. Dragon's Pact development on that. It involves 3 to 10 players. Okay, we're getting there. Sumeragican, again, loser of the short plank has to jump off and swim a lap around the ship. Okay. Mr. Misty Eyes says, game Nautical Madness. 2 players chug a pint of mead, get into separate barrels, and have liquor poured into the barrel and spun by crew until one of them vomits. It's madness, for sure. It didn't involve dice. Cameron F says, Knucklebone. Each player rolls 1d20 and either bets or folds. It's a bluffing game, winner take all. Yes, okay, I like it. Knucklebones, as a matter of fact, knucklebones were used as dice for a long time. Iron Dawnfried says, lucky shot. A row of mugs rests on a table. Each player takes turns trying to toss dice into the mug. Add up the numbers of the ones they land inside, and the ones with the most point wins. I quite like that one, although I can see dice going missing there, and if you use d4s, you will be in trouble. Dustin says, rolling overboard. So on one side of the ship, announce how many... Okay, we've already done that one. Winner of short plank gets half the other player's grog rations. Yes, interesting. AK Writer, dicey stories. You pick a die closest to the number of players. Each player gets a number. You then roll a die. The one whose number is rolled gets to tell one line of a story. You then roll again. I like that. Mihaka Wellington, tipsy. You have to stack dice up in a tower. Whomever tips the stack has to do press-ups equaling to the total shown on the dice. You had me up until the dice collapse. Santa the Green says, chance or chant. 2 or more sailors roll 5 die each. Whomever has the highest must put on a dress and sing an impromptu shanty. They stay in the dress and are out until one person is left. Nilia's Lies Dice. Each player rolls 5d6, all in secret. Each player guesses how many of one number there is in total. Go in turns. If someone thinks you're wrong, called liar, everyone reveals and sees the total. If you have the equal or less of your guess, you get a point. Otherwise, the caller gets 1. You must always bid higher than the last caller. Oh dear, yes, that does sound like a lot of fun. Wolvie Zandalari. Everyone secretly writes 2 dice from D4 to D20 on a scrap piece of paper secretly. There is D4 to D20 equal to the number of players. Then flip the pages over and equally split the dice. Roll away. Highest one wins. Not a bad one. Mr. Stevie Steve says, hot dice requires musicians. Similar to musical chairs, hot potato, pile of dice in the middle, 2-person. Okay, right. Okay, we're still getting blood dragons. 3 to 9 people, everyone secretly rolls dice into a cup, and everyone bets on who rolled the highest out of the group. There is a gold pool, and whoever wins gets a share of the pool. Yes. Elias says, knucklebones. When playing knuckles, a PC places a bet and picks a number between 1 and 6. The house rolls 3d6. 1 match, bet times 2. 2 matches, bet times 3. 4 matches, bet times 4. No matches, loss. The house rolls 3d6 match. Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Oh, I like that one. I do like that one. Took me a little bit longer. There are so many coming through here. I can't keep up. I'm still scrolling. I haven't even got to the bottom yet. All right. This is amazing. This is a lot of fun. And there are so many here that I don't even know where to start. So I think the best option here is for us to look at these and go, well, I liked... Wait, I'm just reading AK Writers. 0G. Pin butter to one wall. Throw dice at the butter. The imprint you can read best wins. Drink and roll. Roll dice between their hands and say hi, hello. The loser takes a swig of his drink. That sounds totally traditional. I do like that one. All right, so there's so many options coming through here. We're running out of time. We really are running out of time. There's mutiny, like go fish with dice. Rigor, roll a d12. Okay, can we all agree? Can we all agree that there were some really good options that came through here? Some really, really, really good options. I think that popped up. To try and single out any one, I think is going to be very difficult because they are so good. So I'm going to go to the start of this here, and that's where it ends. So if I do that, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to close my eyes for 5 seconds. We've done this before on the channel, and the first one that pops up, the first list that pops up, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm actually scrolling, so I'm gonna switch over to my desktop here. There we are. So you can see the thousands of options or hundreds of options that have come through. Is there a limit on the dice? So that's still part of it. Okay, liar's dice is still part of it. All right, so we're going to start from here. I'm going to scroll up and down. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to stop scrolling at a random point, up or down, up or down. It doesn't really matter. And the first game that we come across, that person is going to be a winner. All right, so here we go. I am going to close my eyes. I cannot see a thing. I'm just making sure that I'm on the scrolling part. Okay, so yes, I am on the scrolling part. I'm scrolling up and down, up and down. I don't know if it's still scrolling or not. Is it still scrolling? I don't know. Up or down, up or down, up or down, and stopping, and I'm looking, and I see Samuel Calderon. That's a question. The next one is another, did I go too high? Scrolling down, scrolling up, scrolling down, scrolling down, blah, blah, blah. And the next one says, AK Writers says, no, the classic, I'm looking for the actual game description. James Tension, dual dice. Players use 66 die as hit points. Players roll 3d12 and chooses one, then flips that many cards from the top of a 2-card deck. Their opponent loses hit points equal to the card number. Dual dice has won. James Tension, I think you've won before, haven't you? Have you won before on this channel? Why does that name seem so familiar? I think you have, actually. I think you have. So you have the opportunity. Do you want me to send you these dice? Send you these dice. If you do, drop me an email. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. You can nominate somebody else. But if you want me to send these dice to you, send me an email, and we will go from there. We will go from there. So the email to send it to is this one here. geekstable@gmail. Why is my computer going so slowly? geekstable@gmail.com. If you want our Discord, that's discord.gg/greatgm. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. All those kinds of wonderful things. really love the options that were coming through in terms of all these games. And there's so many fun things. And I think that the power that we have of being able to create these kind of games, never underestimate that when you are moving around, when your players are on a journey, throw in a random kind of game, even if it seems a little bit silly. So in this case, it's like, okay, we're rolling 3d6 and you're bluffing, or we're rolling dice and the first person to roll a 6 is the first person that wins. All those kinds of things, you can come up with them on your own, on the fly almost. I mean, if you look at the turnaround, that was a matter of minutes, and we had this really cool experience going on. So I think that that's a true power of being able to just sort of do this on the fly. Anyway, James Tension, are you in the chat? I'm not sure. If you are, drop me that email. If I haven't got one from you by next week, I'm going to give the dice to somebody else. All right, thank you for your questions. Thanks for attending today. I really, 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 really do appreciate it. And until next week, or Descent into Avernus, well, until then, I wish you all the very happiest, the most exciting, the best possible gaming that you could have. And to our wonderful sponsors of this giveaway, Easy Roller Dice, thank you very much. There'll be more next week. I promise you there will be more next week. Until then, however, happy gaming.